back right. Nice. We got this thing up and running properly. I was streaming on the wrong Facebook channel. I would have been real upset. Alright. So I'm going to get to sharing in the groups.
I got racks to the ATM jam. Tell me what you wanna do. I got racks to the ATM jam. Tell me what you wanna do. You a badass bitch. That don't get swallowed in that fat ass bitch. I got racks to the ATM jam. Tell me what you wanna do. I got racks to the ATM jam. Tell me what you wanna do. I got racks to the ATM jam. Tell me what you wanna do. You a badass bitch. That don't get swallowed in that fat ass bitch. I got racks to the ATM jam. Tell me what you wanna do.
All right. Let's get started. How's everyone doing this evening? How is everyone? We got a special show planned for this evening. You can look above me, see what we talking about tonight. Yes, sir, ski. Yep, we talking about that movie. Yep. We talking about that movie tonight. So, Sinners. Let's review. What about Sinners? First, before we go into the movie, let me do this right and make sure I properly and formally introduce myself. Welcome to this multi-million-dollar stream. I'm your host, Kev Prosper, the owner and founder of Prosperity U LLC. You are tuned into Love and Money, the podcast of Prosperity U LLC. Thank you for contributing to the Cash App above, $ Prosperity U LLC. Thank you for visiting this website below at prosperunlimited.com. Thank you for liking, subscribing, following, and sharing. Remember, we do this every Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And remember to invest in the brand Prosperity U LLC. Build wealth, travel boldly, live royally. Let's go in. Let's talk about it. So, I gave it a lot of thought after watching the movie. I watched it the first time in theaters. Then I watched the movie the first time in theaters. Then I reviewed it for this show, and then I watched it again on my own earlier tonight. Just for my viewing, just for the entertainment of it. And I tried to give grace. I tried to give grace and say, well, okay. I tried to give grace and say, you know what? The people who didn't like the movie, not the people who didn't like the movie, but the people who said it was overrated. Those people, they were probably they had different expectations of the movie, right? And so I tried to give them grace, but then after watching the movie for the third time and then still being just as compelled as I was the first time I saw it, I was just like, okay. Okay, these people missed it. Because the first time I was like, well, you must be less educated. I don't like to call people uneducated, because I do believe most people have a certain degree of education in certain things, but these people are what I would consider to be less educated, meaning they're not as knowledgeable on certain things as others. You know what I mean? And for you to not appreciate a movie like this, you would have to be less knowledgeable on the culture and the music and the history and the the spiritual warfare that goes on in this film. Now, first, before I go in, I want to give a big shout out. He doesn't know me. I don't know him. You know what I'm saying? But his TikTok, he has a TikTok and a YouTube. I was referred to his TikTok. And he does great movie reviews. He broke down this movie. He broke down certain scenes in The Color Purple. He broke down the story plot behind Beloved, which was another one of those movies. A lot of people said Beloved was terrible, but a lot of people missed the point of Beloved as well. You know what I mean? And so yeah, his username is Mr. Gent Movies. Mr. Gent Movies, all in one word. I would like type it up or something, but yeah, Mr. Gent Movies. You could look him up on TikTok and YouTube, and he does great movie reviews. He broke down, as far as this movie is concerned, he broke down like the timeline on the twins, and from where they grew up in Mississippi to them going into World War One, fighting in World War One, and then coming back home to Mississippi, and then fleeing to Chicago, and then coming. And they broke down that whole timeline, and Smoke's baby, and Stack's relationship with Mary, and so on and so forth. He breaks all of that down, and I'm like he didn't put 2 and 2 together. He put 10 and 10 together. Like I was like, yo, wait a minute. Like, did he read the script? Like, did he read the, you know what I mean? No. Like, how does he put all that together? He broke down the Mojo bag. He broke down the baby's grave, Smoke's baby's grave. He breaks all of that stuff down. So go check out Mr. Gent Movies, all at Mr. Gent Movies on TikTok and YouTube. He goes way into a way deeper dive than I do. He even broke down the movie Juice with Omar Epps and Tupac. He even broke down. He talked about how that movie was basically all about chess. I was like, and then like he broke down the characters and which chess piece each character represented. I was like, yo, this guy is deep. So that's enough praise and shout outs to him. Mr. Gent Movies, check him out. And he kind of gave me the inspiration to do my movie review tonight. Shout out to Mo Lovely G and Nish Authentic. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome. Make yourselves at home. All right. So you have the three types of griots, right? You got the three types of enchanters, as they call them in the spiritual practices. They're enchanters. These are people who are spiritually gifted with music, and how they speak to the soul, but they also they know how to spiritually use music as a weapon as well as a tool. You know what I'm saying? And they're gifted with this. You have the Irish Fillies, the Choctaw Firekeepers, and the African Griots. These are enchanters. Almost every culture, every spiritually adept culture has these types of people in it. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's the priests and the shamans. Sometimes it's the witches, so on and so forth. You know what I'm saying? These people are enchanters, right? And these people make up the crux of the story. You got Smoke and Stack, the Smoke and Stack brothers, and that was actually their names were a play on an old blues song. You could look that up. Mr. Gent Movies breaks that down, or he calls it out. He don't break it down necessarily, but so the Smoke and Stack brothers, and they kind of represent like a yin and a yang. They're a thread in the movie, and once that yin and yang is broken, that's when the climax hits, and the movie, like the story begins to the plot thickens, the climax rises, but like the structure of the characters begin to fall apart, and the characters have to scramble for their roles in the story. pretty much. I don't. I'm trying not to. This is gonna be some spoilers. This is gonna be some spoilers. I don't want to spoil it as much as I want to, but it's gonna be some spoilers. I'm just letting you know right now. I paid attention to a lot of the coloring in the movie, or not so much the coloring, but the characters' colors. You know what I'm saying? Each character had a different color. So Smoke had the blue hat and Stack had the red hat. Smoke was the the more of the enforcer type. You know what I mean? Smoke was more of the gangster, whereas Stack was more of the hustler. You know what I mean? They were both gangsters, but Smoke was the gangster, Stack was the hustler. You know what I mean? And Smoke had the blue hat, and I looked this up. The blue represents justice and watchfulness, whereas Stack had the red hat in the very beginning, which represents courage. You know, Stack was very much the salesman. He was very much the marketer, whereas Smoke was the enforcer, where he shot those two guys for trying to steal from his truck. And then you had Sammy. Sammy, he typically he wore white. If he didn't, he wore white. He wore a white shirt with like a brown vest to signify like his purity. He has purity within him. He has a pure soul. You know what I mean? But he's coated in the world. You know what I mean? With that brown vest. You know, so that's what he was kind of representing to me. And in the very beginning, he walks into the white church. You know what I'm saying? This is the place of his innocence. This is where his innocence is birthed, almost. You know, as far as the movie is portrayed. You know, he sees himself in Slim a lot. Delta Slim, the OG character, the comic relief character of the film. He sees himself in him a lot. And in a lot of ways he wants to be like him, and in some ways he doesn't. So like Delta Slim is kind of like a peek into Sammy's future, right? They mentioned Chicago's tall buildings. So Chicago is Smoke. He said Chicago ain't nothing but tall buildings instead of a plantation, right? And he said we'd rather deal with the devil that we know. What did that signify to me? Yes, well, that's what it signified to me. There's levels to slavery. You know what I'm saying? He said tall buildings instead of a plantation. There's levels to slavery. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times we think because we get a paycheck, we can't possibly be a slave. But sometimes, but that paycheck is the illusion. You know what I mean? That paycheck is what you make it. You know, just like in the film, you know what I'm saying? People had all different forms of money. You know, Annie, the Juju woman, you know what I'm saying? She was collecting whatever kind of money she was collecting. Then they were at the bar at the juke joint, and the sharecroppers were getting paid on wooden coins for credit. You know what I mean? Like, and that was their currency. They had to live off of that. They had to live on credit. You know, and so yeah, you know, what are you trading? What are you basically trading? You're leaving Mississippi to go to Chicago for what? You know what I'm saying? Where you got plantations here, you got tall buildings over here. Pick your poison, right? That's what the snake scene. You know, the more spiritually in tuned folks, or the more spiritually enlightened folks, they pinpoint what that snake meant, and I get that. What I was more focused on was the military bonnet and the military pistol. So like the military bonnet. Listen to me. The military bayonet. I'm sorry, the military bayonet with the brass knuckle on it. This is like the kind of yin and yang juxtaposition. Whereas, yes, they're both soldiers. You know what I'm saying? They're both veteran soldiers, and so they both carry military weapons. Whereas, you know, Smoke was about his guns, Stack was about his knife. You know what I mean? Yeah, and so yeah, they're World War I veterans. And so, you know, me thinking of the logistics, I'm like, how would they be able to come home with military weapons? But World War I was a way different time. Like World War I and World War II are like maybe 20 to 30 years apart. But they were two different wars. Like as far as anyway. the business lessons. There was a lot of negotiation going on. You know what I mean? Smoke teaching the little girl how to negotiate. Yo, don't just settle for the first price. You know what I'm saying? Come with a better price, and you may get more. You know what I mean? Don't just take whatever's given to you. You know. Then they were negotiating. Smoke was negotiating with the Asian family. Bo and his wife. I forget I didn't catch the woman's name. But yeah, with the Asian family, you know, like, hey, we need some signs. But since it's short notice, since it's a rush job, I'm gonna need more. I'll offer you this. Now I'll offer you this. I'll offer you that. I'll offer you this. You know. So there's a lot of negotiations going on, a lot of bartering and deal making going on, you know. But all in all, they pulled it together. What was significant to me was when Bo, the husband, the Asian husband, he was like, "Well, we ain't got one color. You know what I'm saying? We got the color red." So that was significant to me. So with that, so I looked up what does red represent. You know, so red, they were going to paint the juke. The juke joint was going to be trimmed in red, right? And so red represents passion and love, danger and violence, power and dominance, rebellion and rage, and seduction and temptation. You know what I mean? Where's that Bible scripture? If you remember in the Bible, I hate to refer to the Bible. I wrote it down. Where is it? If you can remember the Bible scripture, I think it's Exodus, where for the Passover, where they would place blood on the door panels. You know what I mean? For Passover, so that the curse would pass them over, right? So this I took that as this was kind of what they were doing, what the story was trying to represent. Like the juke joint was kind of like a Passover. You know what I'm saying? Where it was trimmed in red. It was trimmed with there was blood on the door panels, just like Exodus. You know what I'm saying? So that all the curses from the outside won't come in the house. You know, and it's always been customary for people to do those kind of things. Let me look for it. Let me see, what scripture is it? Stopped at the door. Exodus 12:7. They are to take some of the blood and put it on the sides and tops of the door frames, where they eat the lambs. Yeah. So yeah. So that stuck out to me a lot when you know they said they only got red. That's the only color they got. So they had to trim the juke joint with red. That's what stood out to me. Smoke and Annie's relationship. You notice Smoke had the blue hat in the very beginning, and Annie, Annie, her whole outfit, everything about her was blue. As far when her character was introduced, she had on a blue outfit, and her house was painted blue. You know what I mean? Now, blue has some spiritual representation to it, but psychologically, blue represents peace and calm, truth and communication, intuition and wisdom, protection and healing, and devotion and faith. So kind of their marriage, so to speak, as far as the characters are concerned, their marriage kind of blends and intertwines. You know, now it is important to pay attention to her colors throughout the film. So in the beginning of the film, she wears blue, and by the time we get to the juke joint, she wears all black. You know what I mean? Black is a very strong, powerful color. You know, and she was significant to the story in the juke when the juke joint at that act of the film, she was very significant to that part of the film. You know, she was very significant to that part of the film. So it's no surprise she was wearing all black in that act. And then towards the end of the film, she wore all white. You know what I mean? And we know white represents innocence, purity, sanctification, so on and so forth. So yeah, because she was such a pivotal character to the story, it was very important to pay attention to the colors that she wore. Smoke mentions to Annie, all money come with blood, and you know he talked about how he seen war, He's been through Chicago, the streets of Chicago, and she mentions you, but even through all of that, you back here in front of me. So just as much power as there is in the world, what she was basically saying is just as much as there's power in the world, there's power in the spirit. Because you saw all of this, and you went through all of these trials and tribulations in your life, and you came right back. You know what I'm saying? You talk about money and power, and all money got blood on it, but look here, you back with me. So what you saying is what you really saying, right? And so you like what I took from that was she was saying that character was saying, you have to respect the spiritual world, and yes, the mojo bag could not save their baby, but at least it saved him. You know what I'm saying? It saved him for a greater purpose, yeah, and she's the only character to call him by his full name. Actually, like I didn't even until maybe like the second or third time I watched the movie, I didn't realize Stack's real name was Elias. And the only person, like, he mentions his real name one time. I may be mistaken, but he was the only one that mentioned his real name. Like, and that was after he made his transition, quote unquote. And so yeah. And then she spoke Creole to him. You know what I mean? Which was very important to the historical context. Cornbread calls out for her Louisiana Bayou bullshit, right? And of course, we all know that the French owned Louisiana, right? And then they transported slaves from Haiti to Louisiana and throughout the Mississippi River, right? And so a lot of Haitian Creole influence is in the all up and through the river and the Delta as well in Mississippi. So it was no surprise that character knew Creole. You know what I mean? That was very key in the historical context of it all. Yeah. And Annie knew, with her spiritual inclination, she was very keen with being keen on the spiritual practices. She knew her fate. When she threw the bones on the crap table. Mr. Gent Movies on his TikTok, he broke down how like the fact that they were on a crap table, that represented chance. And the bones that she threw out, they kept the bones every time she threw the bones, it kept saying the same thing. It kept saying the same thing. Sort of like in the Avengers movie when Doctor Strange was trying to look at all the possible outcomes, and he kept coming back to the same outcome. It was just one fate, right? And then that leads to the philosophical question, like, do we have free will, or is our fate determined, so on and so forth? Chicken or the egg, right? But she knew her fate, and she knew what needed to be done when it needed to be done. So like I said, she was very keen and very pivotal to the story and to the survival of the characters. It was very intriguing that here comes the spoilers. When she was about to make her transition, quote unquote, it was very intriguing. Shout out to Kunita, welcome. It was very intriguing that that the other vampires were like, Stack and Mary, they were like, no, what are you doing, right? It was very intriguing. It was significant. Like, why did they want her transition to be successful as opposed to any of the other characters, let alone Sammy, right? Well, Sammy was Remic's dog in the fight, but as far as Stack and Mary, they wanted her transition to come across, and now but then again, Annie, the Juju woman, she's romantically involved with Smoke. You know what I mean? So what dog did Stack and Mary have in the fight to keep her alive through the transition? Right? I didn't catch that. Maybe somebody else could break that down for me. It was in this movie where I learned what the word "haint" was. I've never heard that word ever in my life. And apparently this is an age-old folk tale of haints. Haint was the origination of the word haunted. Haunt is actually the verb, whereas haint is the noun. So a haint is haunted. A haint can be haunted, whereas it's like it's in the South they call them haints, whereas they're referring to a restless spirit. And in the very, very deep South, i.e. Mississippi, Louisiana, and places like that, they're very keen on spirits and spiritual warfare. This is why in the quote unquote black church, spiritual warfare is such a big and heavy topic. You know what I mean? Because a lot of these African rituals and African folk tales and folk knowledge was passed down and packaged within Southern Christianity too. You know what I mean? Namely the Gullah Geechees, and so on and so forth. So the word haint is the noun, whereas haunt is the verb. And then as well as the Irish, the Scottish Irish from the Appalachians. So now here we have Renwick, the Philly, so to speak, whereas Sammy would be the griot, whereas Renwick is the Philly, the Irish Philly. And I'm curious, maybe that's where the term of the name for the city Philadelphia, but then again that comes from Greek terminology. So I could do more research. I don't feel like going into the weeds with that. But Renwick is running. He's running from the Indians, also running from sunlight. And I'm curious, I want more backstory. Maybe that'll come up in the cutscenes. But I'm curious to know what was the situation with him and the Indians. Why was he running from the Indians? And he knew well enough to go to the house of the nephew and his wife of the Klansman that sold the juke joint to Smoke and Stack, right? So where was the strategy? How did he put all that together? Now, when Mr. Gent Movies did his review, he talked about how whatchamacallit, Renwick possibly was about 1,500 years old. He dug up the history. So towards the end of the movie, he talked about where when Sammy started saying the Our Father prayer, and Renwick was like, "Oh, those are the same words that the man who stole my father's land forced upon us." And as much as he hated those people, those words still comforted him. That was very deep. And he talked about the lies and the propaganda, the religious lies and the religious propaganda, and that and then that made you question, okay, is he really evil or is he a victim? You know what I mean? So, but what was the point I was trying to make with that? I'll get to that. So yeah, and so he knew so he there's a possibility that he could have been alive for about 1,500 years as a vampire. You know what I mean? The Philly were, they were the enchanters of their culture in Ireland, and when the Christian when they were basically colonized pretty much by Christianity, that culture, that Philly culture, was kind of pushed to the background. You know what I mean? And faded away almost. And then there's a tale of the angry Philly who pretty much wanted blood. Mr. Gent Movies breaks that down. He deeps dive into all of that. He wasn't necessarily a vampire, but he wanted blood. You know what I mean? And so I guess the whole concept of a vampire from Ireland would spin off, right? So this is kind of where they're juxtaposing Renwick's character to. He does a lot of lying and luring, and he kind of sows seeds of confusion, and he plays on your insecurities a lot. You know what I'm saying? He lies for sympathy. Like, at first he comes to the house. Now, mind you, I'll get to that too. He walks up to the house, and then the wife opens the door with the shotgun. You know what I'm saying? And he's begging and pleading. Help, help, help. And then he's telling her that, hey, they killed my wife and kid, right? Am I a coward? Oh, like, so he's pulling on her heartstrings. Then the husband comes. He's like, like, what the hell? You know what I mean? And then he sees the Klan robe sitting on the couch, and he's like, oh, y'all want money. So what he understands is that, a lot of the racism in that era and in that culture, in that part of America, was fueled by poverty. You know what I'm saying? Poverty and greed. And it was a ploy for politicians to get votes. You know what I mean? Us and them, right? There's a us and them kind of thing. Come vote for me. So he well understood their motivations. He understood people's insecurities and their motivations and their desires and yearnings. You know what I mean? And he plays on it. So at first he plays on the wife and said, oh, they killed my wife and kids. Then he sees the Klan robe. He said, oh, y'all want some money? I know y'all poor. I know y'all want this, right? You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, none of it really matters to him. He's 1,500 years old. He doesn't need the money, right? He's 1,500 years old. He doesn't have a wife and kid, right? None of it really matters to him. He's just playing. Once again, he's just playing on them. He's just playing on them and luring them in so that he can sink his teeth into them, quote unquote. You see what I'm saying? Where am I? So yes. So now I chat GPT the three crows circling the house. I chat GPT'd that. And what it signified and symbolized, what it mentioned that it symbolizes was judgment, judgment, transformation, or spiritual confrontation. You know what I mean? That was what it was signifying. Because if you notice, every major scene in the movie occurred at some sort of home or some sort of building or structure or an enclosure or quarters. So like in the very beginning, there was Sammy's father's church, right? There was the church. There was Annie's juju shack. There was, and then of course the juke joint, the train station, right? With Delta Slim and Stack and Sammy and Mary as well as Pearline, right? Then there was the juke joint. The only time where people congregated where there was no home was around Remick, and I don't want to spoil. I'd like to not spoil that. You know what I'm saying? But they congregated around Remick, and there was no actual physical structure there. So what could that have symbolized, right? But that was the only time where people congregated and joined joined each other in revelry, right? So let's get to the juke joint part of the movie. This is where this is the build up. This is the build up and the climax, right? This is where the plot thickens and the story really begins to unravel. Let's talk about the juke joint. The corn liquor scene, you know what I'm saying? Well, y'all some uppity niggas. Y'all too classy for me. Y'all too bougie for me. I give you some wooden coins, right? What that signified, and then so of course Smoke being the owner of the club, he's like, what are y'all doing? Like yo, we need real money. Like this ain't real money. How we supposed to keep the lights on, right? But then again, this is the current, like, money is whatever it is wherever you are. You know what I'm saying? This is the currency that these people live by. This is how it's still good money. You know what I'm saying? Because they use it to feed their families still. It may not be money to you, but it's money to them. It's money in the economy where they're at. And so you have to understand, you have to respect currency for what it is. You know what I'm saying? I always say, like I hear people say things like, "Oh, that ain't no real money." I'm like, well, 100. In my mind, I'm like, 100 pennies make $1. You know what I'm saying? I just got word that they actually. Side note, I just got word they stopped manufacturing pennies now. Like that's gonna be pennies are obsolete. The economy is changing. The world is changing. But anyway, Mary being stopped at the door. It was odd to me that this was supposed to be a film about black people in the Jim Crow South, right? So then why is a white passing woman being segregated against, right? like what's happening? Like he stops her at the door, you know what I'm saying, because he assumed that she was a white woman. You know what I mean? So but in the times that they lived in, you had to be very vigilant when it came to race. You know what I mean? Which is sad. And like I said, the people who missed it would think that this movie is about racism. You know what I'm saying? The people who really missed the point, they really missed what this movie was about, would think that is about racism. The guitar scene, the legendary guitar scene, the Sammy's guitar scene, you know what I'm saying? Like that was special. That was special. That was kind of like the director's nod to music and the power of music and so on and so forth, right? I ain't gonna say I cried, but my eyes did well up at that scene when it got to the part where the roof was burning. I was just like, oh man, this is beautiful. Like you just gotta love humanity to see all of those cultures from past, present, and future in one space. Like it was something very, very, very magical, very spiritual as well, and you had to appreciate it. If you don't really have a knowledge or an exposure to culture and music, then it's gonna go right over your head. But I really teared up and welled up at that scene. Delta Slim, he mentions in that scene, they do a little cut where Delta Slim mentions, the blues comes from home, meaning Africa. That's basically what he was getting at, and it wasn't forced on us like their religion was. You know what I mean? There were a lot of things that and it surprised me too when I actually look into it. There were a lot of things that the Africans brought with them. You know what I mean? That we're so accustomed to. We're so accustomed to, but we don't realize where it comes from. Especially like in the black church, when they do the song and dance and the call and response, and the catch, the quote unquote catching the Holy Ghost. There is I'm gonna put a link in the description, but there's clips and footage of like African cultures where they were like calling upon or communicating with spirits through that dance. You know what I'm saying? That same dance that we're doing in the church, that the black folks do in the church, where actual African, Western African cultures were you performing to communicate with spirits. But we grow up with it. We don't know where its origin from and so on and so forth. And we just take it as just par for the course. And so yeah, we're kind of very far removed. The first time Remick comes to the door. So there were, how many times did Remick come to the door? Remick came to the door twice. He came to the door the first time, you know what I'm saying, pulling his tricks, trying to lure him with inclusion, fellowship, and love, right? Try to play a little song, you know what I'm saying, like here it go, you know what I mean? And then he pointed out Mary. He's trying to use he's playing once again, playing on your insecurities, playing on your yearnings and desires. He knows Mary. Mary plays that quote unquote tragic mulatto role. You know what I'm saying? Where she's not good enough for the whites and she's not good enough for the blacks. You know what I mean? And so this is where she feels compelled to reach out to them. She's like, I can talk to them. They'll tell me more than they'll tell you. They know, you know what I'm saying? Like I have an in with them. You know what I mean? Once again, playing on her insecurities and her yearnings. And then she actually gets to meet up with them and they're like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, oh, this fellowship and love, you know what I'm saying? You could be one of us. You know what I'm saying? We just want to have a good time. You know, and you know, like even when Remick was playing the song for Mary, you know what I'm saying, you could see her like wow, like no one has ever, you know what I'm saying, been this warm to me. You know what I'm saying? I've always, you know, had to deal with this typical Mississippi Delta bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Here, these folks being so nice to me, right? And then what was it? There was a scene. Then the director he puts a little juxtaposition scene where he has Smoke and Sammy, you know what I'm saying, debating on finding their own way, and then Stack and Mary debating on finding their own way. Whereas Sammy, you know, once the juke joint is over, he wants to leave Mississippi and live his life as a musician, because he knows he's talented. He realizes he's talented enough to do it, you know. And whereas Mary, she wants to go out and communicate with Remix and possibly get money out of him. Now, I think, you know, you know, the director, he probably wanted to keep it. He wanted to keep it kind of PG-13 sort of, where it's really, I think it's rated R, but he really wanted to keep it PG-13 and kind of make it so that it's stomachable for, you know, for where the movie, the characters are stomachable, but it's still just a horror movie, right? He wanted to keep it that way. And so, because if you ask me, Mary was probably a former escort, you know. The way she was being treated in the film, the way Stack was treating her, the way she was, like, what kind of woman wants to go out and meet a man in the middle of the night and try to get money out of him? What you call that? Come on, come on, son. What you call that, son? We know what that's about. But the director, I'm pretty sure they sat in the writer's room and was just like, let's keep it PG-13. Let's just keep it about the conversation and try her inviting them into the club and trying to get money out of them. See what they about. All right, I get that. So yeah, Remick and Mary, and then he kind of gives away his age. Remember, Mr. Gent Movies kind of extrapolated that he may be about 1,500 years old, where he gives her those old gold coins like a fucking leprechaun. You know what I'm saying? Like, so yeah, you know, and he mentions, you know, it's from a different place and a different time, but it's, you know, and once again, here goes the power of economy, right? Where money is still money. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, these are old ancient coins, you know what I'm saying, but it's still gold, right? It'll still pay for whatever it is that you want, you know what I mean? And so yeah, and he's constantly he's luring them with their desires. You know, Mary wants to belong. Mary wants money. You know what I mean? Yeah, and so he plays on it. And then they placate death as salvation, and this is kind of similar to you know, New Testament Christianity. You know, quote unquote, flesh of my flesh, blood of my blood. Like, what that mean, right? Some people refer that to as vampirism, where others refer to it as cannibalism. But that's another conversation. But yeah, you know, placating death for salvation. You know what I'm saying? Dying to your old self. You know, that New Testament Christianity, and this was the same Christianity that was imposed upon him and his people way back, however many hundreds and thousands of years ago, as he's a vampire, right? And this is what made him who he is. You know. This is what made him the restless soul that he is, or the vampire that he is. It's kind of akin to it was another movie. It was a Viking movie with that tall, blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy that everybody loves from what's that show on HBO? It was also a spiritual show. Oh man, how I forget? I could Google it right now. Let me see. HBO. HBO show set in Louisiana. What was it called? Not Treme. Not True Detective. Come on. How you... True Blood. True Blood, yeah. It was called True Blood. Yeah. But he played the Viking movie, and in the villain in that movie, he was like, oh, those Christians, they pray to a corpse. You know? And so like, once again, if most people don't know it, but Christianity was kind of like an amalgam of a lot of pagan traditions. You know what I'm saying? That was the marketing in those ancient times. But a lot of, we kind of, in our modern culture, we kind of fear death, whereas a lot of other cultures, a lot of more ancient cultures and civilizations, they embrace death. Like the Native American Mexican cultures, they have Dios de los Muertos, yeah, where the Day of the Dead, you know what I mean, where they celebrate. It's actually a celebration of death, literally. It's actually a celebration of death, literally, So, let's transition to the Pale Moon. That was actually the name of the song that they were singing. Like I said, the only scene where people were congregating and reveling, outside of an actual building was when they were dancing with Remick, and then they were singing it. But now, in the very beginning, Sammy's father, he was like, oh, these philanderers and these sinners and these whomever, all in these clubs and these juke joints, right? But when they sang that Pale Moon song, what were they doing? They were singing and stomping. You know what I'm saying? Just like they do in church. So it was kind of odd to me. It was like, oh, so wait a minute, they're having church in the club, but they're supposed to be sinners, right? And once again, they were outside of the church singing and stomping with Remick. You know what I mean? So it's like, so it made you wonder, and then with Remick and them, it was black and white people singing and stomping and jumping and shouting and having a good time. You know what I mean? So like, who's really the sinners? Are the sinners inside the church or the sinners outside the church? You know what I'm saying? Let's think about it. Let's talk about it. So yeah, and once again, they were doing those dances to invoke spirits. You know what I'm saying? This was an African tradition. You know what I'm saying? Like these was, or as well as the Irish traditions. You know what I'm saying? That those dances, what are they really doing? What are they really doing? In the beginning of the movie, they mentioned the Choctaw Firekeepers. You know what I'm saying? These were the enchanters of their culture. What are they really doing? They're invoking spirits. You know what I mean? You ever watch somebody dance? You know what I'm saying? Like a really, really good dancer, and then you get goosebumps watching them, or you want to dance with them. You know what I'm saying? You find yourself up out your seat in your living room doing the moves that they doing. Like remember, look at Michael Jackson. You can't tell me Michael Jackson wasn't a griot. You can't tell me he wasn't. This man would stand there for 5 minutes straight looking in one direction, and then everybody in the stadium from that side in the direction that he was looking would faint. You can't tell me that's not spiritual energy. Come on, son. And then he would stand there for 5 minutes and not do a thing, and then look the other direction, and everybody on that side of the stadium would faint. Get the fuck out of here, son. Come on, you can't tell me Michael Jackson wasn't a griot. You know what I mean? Like, some people have these gifts. And some people's gifts are stronger than others. You know what I mean? You can't deny it. Yeah, so the vampires were having church outside. So were the vampires really evil? You know what I'm saying? By the end of the movie, what I came to realize was that the vampires were not evil. The vampires weren't evil. They just had a job to do. They were a part of nature. You know what I mean? You think of people in your life, and I've been through this. I live life just like you do, right? You think of people in your life who you may perceive as evil or have it out for you or anything like that. And it took me years and years to realize that. I was like, wait a minute, these people aren't evil. They're just being themselves. It's just that their frequency and their resonance is clashing with yours at that particular point in each other's lives. You know what I mean? And this creates the adversity. Whereas your logical mind wants to perceive them as evil because they're stopping you from doing what you want to do or need to do. Whereas they're looking at you the same way. You know what I'm saying? Like the vampires, they wanted to get into the juke joint, right? They wanted to get into the juke joint to kill the bystanders. But then again, it's like they wanted to have heaven on earth and fellowship and love, right? That was their goal, or at least what they said it was. You know what I'm saying? They wanted to turn everybody. But that's in their nature to do so. Just like, it was in, Smoke and everybody else's nature to, hey, keep these people out, keep them out. You know what I'm saying? This is a boundary. We're protecting our home. We're protecting our space. And then the Asian wife, she was like, you know what I'm saying? Y'all got what y'all got in here. My family is out there. We can't have this. You know what I mean? And that creates the tension. Could you have said she was evil? You know what I'm saying? For calling in the vampires? Right? You know what I mean? But once again, it's all about economy. What do you have to lose? At that point, she had nothing to lose. You know what I mean? Like, shit, if you ask me, they should have just let her go. Go get your husband, sis. Come back with fangs in your mouth. You know what I'm saying? Like, fuck out of here. You know what I mean? But once again, she had nothing to lose. That's kind of jumping towards the end. I'm gonna look through my talking points. Slim, OG Slim, Delta Slim, man. Delroy Lindo, great actor. He took a comical, flimsy, you know what I'm saying, nonsense role and made it like I wouldn't say he was a key character in the film, but he was very very pivotal and very necessary for the film. He was the comic relief that we needed. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure there was a lot of cuts and a lot of takes. You know what I mean? But yeah, he was very much so what he needed. And like I said, he was kind of the juxtaposition to Sammy. He was Sammy looking in the mirror or the ghost of Christmas future to Sammy. And it's funny, he sacrificed himself for Sammy. He sacrificed himself for Sammy, but then sort of like quote unquote the blood of the lamb, right? But how oxymoronic is that? The drunk, the most sinning sinner, you know what I'm saying, became the sacrifice, right? Like how oxymoronic was that? And then what was funny is, as he's sacrificing himself, he walks onto the stage. You know what I'm saying? And so it's kind of like, you live by the stage, you die by the stage. He's a performer, he's an entertainer, he's a musician. All he knows is the stage. You know what I mean? And so where else better for him to die than on the stage, right? Remick and Sammy versus Stack and Smoke. No. Remick versus Sammy and Stack versus Smoke. So this is when the transition occurs. This is when the story falls apart, and this is when the villain or the antagonist of the story is really kind of showing his true colors now. You know what I'm saying? He's kind of showing his hand. You know what I'm saying? He's really like, hey, I need Sammy. You know what I'm saying? You have stories, you have you have a sound, and we can basically become one. You know what I mean? And he's basically thinking like, well, if I'm gonna be stuck on this earth, you know what I'm saying, I might as well be as strong as I could possibly be. You know what I mean? And what's more powerful than music? What's more powerful than sound? You know what I mean? And as talented and as gifted as you are, your gift is my key. You know what I mean? And I think he mentioned that, you know, he could help him get home. You know, so like home to his people. You know what I'm saying? In the spirit realm, right? So this is Remic's motivation now. You know what I'm saying? Now at this point, you know what I'm saying, like I said, the story is unraveled. He has nothing left to lose. So he doesn't have to lie and lure like he was in the beginning. He can be himself now, you know. Stack and Smoke, you know, yeah, the hardest thing to do is to kill someone who looks like you, you know, no matter how evil they may seem. You know what I mean? So I'll leave that at that. I don't want to spoil it any further. At this point, Remick was pretty much becoming what he's hated. You know what I mean? When he talked about, you know, when he was telling Sammy about the Our Father prayer, you know, he's becoming what he hated. He imposed those. He had, you know, those people impose upon him in his father's land. You know. And this is what he was doing to everyone else now. Now he's a vampire. He's imposing himself, his will upon other people now. You know what I'm saying? He's becoming what he's hated. And as much, like he said, he hated those people, but the words still brought him comfort. So it's like that power of familiarity. You know, like this is, I think this is what they get at with the what's it called? When like an abuser like falls in, when an abused falls in love with what syndrome? Oh man, you know what I mean? Yeah, Stockholm syndrome. Yeah, Stockholm syndrome. And then the baptism. I wasn't. I didn't get that. I mean, I got it, but I didn't get it. I was like, why is he baptizing him? I guess he was making it a ceremony. He's like, yes, this is the final key. You know what I'm saying? We done transitioned everybody else. This is the final key. You know what I mean? He talked about, you know, stories of a God above and a devil below, lies of dominion of man over beasts of the earth. You know what I mean? And then he turns around and says, you know, we're all one. We're beast, woman, and man. You know what I'm saying? We all that. You know what I mean? So you know, Remick he's clearing the air and kind of seeking power, as well as, you know, a key home. You know, and this is all through Sammy. This is how powerful Sammy's gift is. You know, and then when I saw when in the spoilers, when you know Remick went up in flames, you know, I couldn't help but to think of the Choctaw Firekeepers. Why do they call them the Firekeepers? Once again, these griots, you know, they invoke spirits, right? They invoke spirits and commune with spirits, and you know, guide spirits, so on and so forth. And so so this is pretty much what they were trying to do. That was my take on it. This is what the Indians were trying to do when they were chasing him. You know, and so yes. Now Smoke and the clan leader. In his last moments, you know what I'm saying? In both of their last moments, the clan leader tried to offer him some money. You know what I'm saying? Like, what was that really gonna do? But at the end of the day, it showed me how like stupid racism is. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, no matter how racist you are, the only color that matters is green. You know. Once again, Annie's transition. So she went from blue to black to white. So it's kind of like, you know, she kind of traversed the color spectrum. You know what I mean? In a way. You know what I'm saying? She goes from light to dark to light again. You know, and you know, And then she says, I don't want any of that smoke to get, you better put that cigarette out if you want to hold her, because I don't want any of that smoke, quote unquote, to get on her. You know what I mean? And then you notice once Smoke held the baby, once again she still refers to him as Elijah. She doesn't refer to him as Smoke. You know, and you know, this is her calling to him to leave that life behind, figuratively and literally. No spoilers, but she still refers to him as Elijah. And you know, up until that point, that was the only time where that character smiled through the entire movie. The entire movie, they're in the juke joint, people laughing, singing, and dancing, and he's just, once again, because he had the blue hat, you know, watchful, vigilant, and enforcing, right? And then once, you know, even when that Klansman offered him the money and he shot him to death, you know what I'm saying? Like he said, all money come with blood. You know what I'm saying? All money come with blood. And so no matter how much money he could have offered, he could have offered him for the juke joint, and no matter how much money the Klansman could have offered him to get out of him killing him, you know what I'm saying? It all comes with blood at the end of the day. All right. I want to talk about the very end where Sammy is now an old man. Stack and Mary, they actually return. You know what I mean? They return, and who are they dressed like? Remember, this is 1992. This is set in 1992. Stack has on a Coogee sweater with a pendant chain and a high top fade with a Gumby. Like, who dressed like that in that era? Come on now. You know what I'm saying? Mary has on Mary got on door knockers, you know what I'm saying, a swoop with the bang, you know what I mean, and a leather 8-ball jacket. Who used to dress like that in that era? Right? You know what I'm saying? So what was Ryan Coogler really, what message was Ryan Coogler trying to send? You know what I'm saying? Like what I took from that was that vampires come in many forms. You know what I'm saying? If you think of drug dealers in the hood, you know what I'm saying, they were loved. They were just as much loved as they were hated. You know what I'm saying? People threw stones at them for, you know, selling poison in the hood or sucking the blood out of the hood. You know what I'm saying? But they were loved. They were looked up to. You know what I'm saying, about, you know, kids and up and coming drug dealers, and they were also loved by the hood because they fed the hood. You know what I'm saying? They gave people jobs when no one else would, right? so like, who are the real vampires? You know what I'm saying? That was what that scene took from me. And then once again, not all vampires are evil, right? You know what I'm saying? And all of that, you know, he once again, he lured him with his desires. Hey, you know, I could give you a longer life. You know what I'm saying? You can have this, you can have that. You know what I'm saying? Come, you know what I'm saying? Come on, you know you want some. And even then, you know, he daps him up and gives him a hug. You know what I'm saying? And then just chucks the douches. You know what I mean? And he upholds his promise to his brother. You know what I'm saying? Not to kill Sammy. You know, ain't no spoilers, but yeah. So yeah, I thought that was a very like, it seemed like, you know, by that time, you know, as an audience member, you're emotionally exhausted from the climax of the film and the plot unraveling, right? So you're emotionally exhausted. So by the time you get to that scene, it's like you're not really paying attention as much as you normally would be. But that's what I picked up from it. What else? It's a solid hour. Okay, I've been doing good. I've actually, these notes have kept me on course. So I talked about every major scene involving a house, some sort of house. The vampires only coming in with permission. Now that's a very folklorish, spiritual thing too. That's a very yes, in Judaism, the mezuzahs on the doorframe bless and spiritually protect the home, keeping unclean forces out. So like some cultures, they would put oil. Some cultures would put blood, lamb blood, goat blood, so, you know, any kind of sacrificial blood. Some cultures would put like a wreath or a banner, over their door, something over the door to signal to the spirits like, okay, either you could come in, or this particular spirit can come in, or this particular spirit can't come in, you know. But that's very, very customary. Hoodoo, I didn't know hoodoo. Like, once again, this is new to me. I didn't know. All my life I've been familiar with the African Haitian practice of voodoo with a V, but I didn't know hoodoo with a H was a thing. So in hoodoo, African spiritual traditions, protective rituals often center around thresholds like salting doorways or sweeping to prevent spirits from crossing in. I remember my mother telling me stories of a woman, laying on her doorstep naked. You know what I mean? And she wasn't like a prostitute like that. This was a regular local village woman, and she would she would be laying on the doorstep naked, and then my grandmother was like, get on out of here. You know what I'm saying? You can't come in. She's begging them to come in, and she's like, no, you can't come in. And basically the reason she was naked was because throughout the night she was originally an animal. You know what I'm saying? like these are stories I've heard, and then, of course, in European cultures you got the tales of werewolves, you know what I'm saying, shapeshifters. So these spiritual folklores and things like that, they're out there. The tales are out there. It's passed down, right? And so there were constantly, people approaching the door, Mary and cornbread at the door, Mary and Stack, that situation, they were supposedly love making, and then she runs out. Cornbread and Annie at the door, Annie's like, like what you mean, why you gotta ask permission to come in, right? Stack and Smoke at the door, you know what I'm saying? Stack is like, hey, I'm still your brother, right? And they're like, no, don't do it. Bo and his wife at the door. That was the turning, the turning point, he's like, yo, come on, just hop in the car, let's go. And the car's warming up, and there's no car running whatsoever. Remick and Sammy at the door, you know what I'm saying, where Remick calls out to Sammy, says, hey, I want your gift, you know what I'm saying, I want what God gave you, pretty much. And then it's funny because I say that Delta Slim was a juxtaposition to Sammy, but even more so, Sammy was a juxtaposition to Remick. Now, you got to think, Sammy his gift was powerful enough to invoke spirits from the past, present, and future, right? Well, Sammy's gift was powerful enough to unite black and white people in the Mississippi Delta of the Jim Crow era. You know what I mean? That's invoking the spirit in and of itself. You know what I mean? So they were kind of more of a I saw them as more of a juxtaposition than Sammy and Slim, but or more so the protagonist and antagonist in a sense. And then I mentioned Stack and Smoke at the door. I mentioned that twice. Okay, yeah. So the moral of the story is your gift is someone else's key. Your gift is someone else's key, and so you can't. So you are hurting someone by holding in your gift. You know what I'm saying? You need to commune and invoke your spirit so that you can heal someone else. You know what I'm saying? That's ultimately what I got from this film. And how can someone be evil if they want heaven on earth, right? I'll leave you with that one. So, I put in work tonight. I put in work for that one, y'all. Y'all gonna feel this. Y'all gonna hear it. Y'all gonna see it. I put in a lot of work for that review. I'm very proud of myself. I want to thank each and every last one of you for tuning into this multi-million-dollar podcast. I'm your host, Kev Prosper, the owner and founder of Prosperity U LLC. You are tuned into Love and Money, the podcast of Prosperity U LLC. Thank you for contributing to the Cash App above, $ Prosperity U LLC. Thank you for visiting the website below at prosperunlimited.com. Thank you for liking, subscribing, following, and sharing. And remember, we do this every Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And remember to invest in the brand Prosperity U LLC. Travel boldly, build wealth, travel boldly, live royally. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Be sure to shop Amazon with Prosperity U LLC. Link in the description.
These are all of my books. My very first book, Lead the Fairy Tales Up to Disney, The Reality of Dating. Haunted Truths, a romance murder mystery set in the heart of Brooklyn during the 1980s, during the height of the crack era. Switch, my romantic comedy. My trilogy, Spirit of the Machine, 1, 2, and 3, sci-fi action thriller. My poem anthology, Red Garden. That is System of the Sun. That's my book on organizational skills. Don't wait till I get rich to buy that book. New Shoes. That's my book on self-esteem, on how to love yourself. Ratchetology. Yes, I'm the ratchetologist. Take my advice.
Visit prosperunlimited.com and click travel to book your next vacation.
Do that freaky jam on the beat. Dizzy with that butter shit, that bone feed. Did you double do that song thing. Flicky with some butter, sit that bone thing. If you cheeky cheddar, check, I get her own cheese. And so chicken with that head or this up, that won't be with the official with that whole sleeve. Ready to use the wish with that long.
I got racks at ATM jam. Tell me what you wanna do. I got racks at ATM jam. Tell me what you wanna do. You a badass bitch, If I don't get swallowed in that